I don't know what it is. I think it must be the extra heat, the extra light, and the extra fertilization I've been giving these plants. But my Hoyas are doing fantastic. What is up, my planting people? My name is Lithius, and welcome to Roots Ready. It's that time of the month and I'm going to be going through my favorite plants. Now, usually I try to pick 5, but this month, I kid you not, I couldn't decide because all of my Hoyas have been doing so well. They've been growing. I've been very lucky to have some additional ones bloom. I've had some of the OG, the original ones, like my KRINKLE 8, which is a regular bloomer, bloom, but also I've had other plants bloom for the first time. So it was great to see what those blooms look like, what they smell like. It really gives me a new appreciation for Hoya. So I couldn't decide, so I decided to put them all in this video for you guys today. As well as one other plant, I'm going to be showing you an Anthurium that is doing just fantastic. And that Anthurium is no other than my queen, my Anthurium WAROCQUEANUM. Look at it, guys. Come on. Come on. What more can I say? Now, I'm not gonna lie, this plant has taken me a few goals, a few leaves to get the care just right, just on the money. You can see that this leaf over here was almost perfect. Can you see that? There was just a tiny little hole here where you can kind of see my finger just over here. And I almost got this one right. I had it in the right amount of humidity. I stayed on top of the watering, and the plant did really well considering all things considered. I also moved it back away from the window because I wanted really dark leaves just like this one over here. Very nice, very elegant, very sleek. This one on the other hand, I don't know what happened. I think I must have been going through a rough patch, but I completely neglected the plant when this leaf was coming out. I was running out of space very quickly, so I stuck it up against an east facing window. I was very silly thinking that you know, the light's not going to be too hot, this morning light, but you have to be on top of it. And it was very warm in that window. A lot of my plants got sunburnt, and you can see that just in the blotchiness in this leaf, especially on the back side. You can see how blotchy that is, and that is really just sunburn. And it was too late before I noticed it, and I had to pull it out and put it into my greenhouse behind me. When this plant actually hardened off, it had really crispy ends, just at the bottom where I've cut it off now. It was really crispy, really damaged. So I learned my lesson very quickly. Now, when it was in this grow tent behind me, the humidity was good. The temperature wasn't too hot. It wasn't burning the leaves. It had, you know, 12 hours of light a day. So it was really doing well. However, when this leaf started coming out, it started to hit the other plants in there. It is quite tight. There's not loads of space in that greenhouse. So I had to quickly react and pull it out. But before I did that, I made sure that I could stay on top of the watering of this plant, because I think that's so important when you have a new leaf coming out, because when the plant loses that moisture, that humidity, especially around the root area, that's when you start to see damage like this and so on. So you don't want to you don't want it to be, you know, as well as it having too much light and too much heat, to also dry out. So there was a bit of moss on the top of this. There still is some under this bag, but it wasn't good enough. I mean, the moss was drying out every other day, so I had to really be on top of it. And if I forgot, then the plant, you know, it doesn't like it. It starts to react. So what I did is I covered the moss on the top of the pot, as you can see, with just a sandwich bag, just like so. And that really helps to keep in that moisture and that humidity. That, combined with me pulling it just a little bit further back away from the window, because this plant doesn't need a tremendous amount of light, resulted in this glorious leaf. Just look at it. It's so stunning, so beautiful, and still hardening off. So I think it's maybe still got a little bit of length to give, maybe a couple of centimeters. So I couldn't be happier. I have a series on this plant actually from when I first got it, so you can see how small this plant was, how I got it, and where it's come to now. So it's really grown in the few months that I've had this plant in my collection, and I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more excited to have it and have it thriving so much. And I'm glad to know that I finally, you know, with this plant, you have to stay on top of your game to make it happy. And I did that for this leaf, and I will continue doing that for the other leaves to come. So there we have it, the Queen Anthurium, just a absolute stunner. I promised you all some Hoyas, so I'll be sure to deliver on that. And the first Hoya, and I'm not sure if I've showed this one on this channel before, this is a Hoya latifolia, and it was a plant that was on my wish list for a long time, so I was really excited to get it as a single leaf cutting, believe it or not. Just this leaf over here. I actually got this plant rooted in pond, and then I quickly decided to transition this over into soil because I've been on a bit of a learning curve now, and I think this is one of the reasons, again, why so many of my Hoyas are doing really well this month. So I decided to put this one in soil, and it's been doing really well ever since. Just look at it. So since I've had this plant, it's put out, look, 2, 4, 6, 7 leaves, including this little baby one at the back here, if you can see it. Let me just move this leaf to the side. So can you see that? So there's also this little one over here. So there's so much growth on this thing, as well as a super long tendril. Oh, with a couple of baby ones, I've just noticed. There's 2 more over here, potentially another 2 over here, and then some at the, like, this plant is just, it's just doing really well. This plant is the closest to my east facing window. It's literally right on the ledge. It gets blasted with sun. It dries out completely, like completely, guys. Like, I will forget to water this plant sometimes, and the plant just keeps kicking. It keeps throwing out leaves. It is just such a trooper, such a fighter, this plant, and that's why I love it. Like, you know, I have a place in my heart for aeroids, and I love them, and I think they're definitely my favorite. But Hoyas are quickly climbing up that list in terms of the preference of plants that I own, just because of how easy it is to look after. The foliage is fantastic. It's got that splashing, which you pay a pretty penny for to have any variegation on an aeroid. So to have it on most of my Hoyas it's just a you know, an extra. This one's been doing fantastic in my collection, I kid you not, and probably of all the Hoyas that I have, probably the easiest to grow. This one hasn't put out any peduncles for me yet, or any flowers, but at this rate of growth, I'm sure I'll have something to show very soon. Yeah, that's it. This is the very quick one on the Hoya latifolia. Now, the only Hoya that I have which is actually in bloom, or just coming to the end of its bloom, is my Krinkle 8. Now, you guys have seen this one several times on this channel if you've been following my Hoya journey. But the different thing this time is usually I have some peduncles on this stem over here. Now, this is one of the more mature stems. I've had it for quite a while, and it's already produced flowers this year, but it did it again just recently. It was literally just this week that I plucked off the last flowers on this one. They were falling off and making a mess on the floor, so I just decided to pull them all off and chuck them in the bin just to keep my floor a little bit tidy. But this year, this plant has gone into overdrive. Absolutely, it's gone crazy. This is a new peduncle, and it's the first time producing some lovely flowers for us. There is another peduncle which is developing just here near my thumb. If you can see that, if the camera will focus, let's see. There you go, that's another one developing. But there was another one, yes, this one over here, which is on that same stem as this one, also had some flowers on it earlier this year. So that's done really well in terms of its bloom. I don't know what I've done differently about this one. To be fair, this one is a trooper. It just does its thing. I need to start figuring out how I'm going to display this, because I have it on this hanging pot, but it's so heavy on just one side that it's looking like it's going to tip over very soon. So I might have to start propagating it and adding some extra weight on this side just to balance it out a little bit, or just put it in a really heavy cover pot and maybe have it draping over the side of something. So we'll see. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do yet, but all I know is that this plant is dead easy to look after, and it just does its thing. It just grows. Sometimes, again, this plant goes completely bone dry, like super dry, and it's quite a thirsty boy. So as soon as it goes dry, when I water it, oh god, like I really water it, but then it dries up really quickly because there's so much growth on it. It's doing so much. It's so active. And that's why I really like this plant. If you don't have it, definitely consider getting one. It's a really quick grower, reliable, and quick to bloom as well. So just fantastic. The smell, not so great. I've said this before. It is not to my liking. It smells a little bit like cow dung and black licorice. The combination doesn't work. I'll tell you that for free. But yeah, it's been fantastic. Really, really great. Oh, here's the other peduncles. I had 4 flowers on here actually at once. So here's another one over here. Again, this is a brand new one. So yeah, this is the Hoya Krinkle 8. This Linearis I'm super, super proud of. I've had my battles with this plant, I kid you not. I got this as like a 2-strand cut-in. I then cut it into smaller individual nodes. Only 2 of them took, the rest completely died. So I've had to sort of start this plant over from scratch. I've had it in pond, I've had it in water, I've had it in soil, everything. And the one that I stuck to, the one that's been doing the best is soil. So since I've put this plant in soil and since the last time you guys have seen it, just look at that. So much growth, so much has happened in just a short space of time. And this plant hasn't stopped yet. Like it's telling me that it's not ready to give up because there's so many new sort of growth points in this plant from the recent cuttings that I put in here. And I think that's just to do with the fact that it's now in soil, that it's latched on and it's just growing and it's doing so well. I have this plant in a position where it gets good morning light. Again, I think this is a bit of a thirsty plant. So I tend to water this one maybe twice a week. But even then, it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. I think with this one, it is a little bit fussy to root. Probably the most fussy Hoya that I own in terms of rooting it. But if you are going to do it, trust me, stick to soil because I haven't had much luck with pond and other substrates like leca as well. With this plant in particular, the other ones not so much, but this one has been really, really fussy. And I grow a lot of plants in pond, so I think I know my way around it a little bit. But with this plant, it was so difficult to do it, and now you can see it's thriving. Like it's really going. It continues to push out new growth, and I think a lot of this has only happened in the last 2 months since I released my last video on my Hoya, and it's just, yeah, it hasn't stopped yet. So yeah, it's been doing really, really well, and I just hope that it continues to grow as well as it's growing now. So this is it. This is the Hoya Linearis. I think of all my Hoya, this one has done the least since you've last seen it. Since then, I think these leaves were already on their way out, these 2, but they were very, very small. So they've now grown, they're fully grown now, they've hardened off, nothing more to come from that. The only thing to really report are just some extra leaves that are coming out of the older sort of stem, so a little bit way back. You've got one over here, can you see that? One over here, and then a tiny one, whoops, and then a tiny one over here that's quickly hardening off. This is one of my favorite Hoya. I just love the look of the leaves. They just look really sort of artistic. I really like the venation. I like the splashing. It's very minimalistic. I remember when I first got this plant, actually, it only had 2 leaves actually, and this is one of the oldest ones. This one over here, look how small that is compared to some of the latest leaves. Like it's grown actually quite a lot, because I went back on my eBay account where I actually purchased this plant from, and I can just look at the difference between like where this plant came from and where it is now, and it has done a lot of growing. It has done, but just in the last 2 months, I think, although it has been doing very, very well, it has done the least in those couple of months. So I might need to look at the way I care for this plant. Who knows, this plant might be one that does better in soil. I find that's the case for a lot of Hoya. But with the way that I love to travel, I love to get out of the house, I just want to be able to allow my plants to just look after themselves, do as little as possible. Like I want maximum results for minimum effort. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But anyway, so I think with the semi-hydro system, you give it a bit of water, you don't have to worry about them for a couple of weeks. And that's great. That works with my lifestyle. I'm way too busy actually. So this is a great way for me anyway, just to look after my plants. But if I do see this plant start to decline and start to really, really slow down, I will put it into some soil. But for now, it's been doing okay. So that's it, the Finlaysonii. Okay, so next up is this plant right here. This is my Hoya CV Jennifer. And it was probably near the bottom of the list in terms of plants I thought would be quick to flower. just because it was so bare. Like it was doing really well on the bottom when I first got it, and then it just went really sort of leggy, and it hasn't really done a lot of growing. I mean, this was the last leaf that it gave me, and that was maybe at the start of the year, and then nothing. But then in the last couple of months, maybe 2 months, definitely, it produced this peduncle, and then it also went into flower. It was beautiful for the short time it lasted. This thing, I think, lasted less than a week. With the Hoya Crinkle 8, usually the flower tends to stay on for maybe, you might be lucky and get it for 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. But this one, as soon as it opened, it was like the next day or maybe the day after that, they were all falling off. So it was a really quick one. It was short. It was a fleeting one, but it was definitely, I was really excited to see it grow. And since then, it started to produce a few leaves. So we've got one here. And then as I pulled it out today, because it's tucked away in the back of the shelf that all of my Hoyas are on, I noticed that there was a whole new growth emerging here at the bottom with some leaves as well. So that is super exciting. And it's just great to see just the variety in the different types of flowers, how they come out, how they merge. It's just really cool to see. So I was really happy to see how the flowers look on this. It's been a really cool one to grow. I've really enjoyed it. And again, growing in leca. This is one that I find that is really easy to grow in semi-hydro. But I imagine, again, maybe in soil, it could be doing even better. Maybe I would have had this peduncle a year earlier than I got it. But yeah, it's a really cool one, really interesting to grow as well. So this is the Hoya CV Jennifer. So the final Hoya that actually bloomed for me this year was this one. This is the PHUWUAENSIS, and it is a stunner. I just really love how this plant grows. It's a really minimalistic style of growing. It's really sort of bare, it's really skinny, really thin, really small leaves. Like the speckling is it measures itself in everything that it does. And I had this peduncle over here. Can you see that? This one over here bloom for me. And one is, I didn't expect it to look the way it did. I hadn't researched it to see what the blooms would look like, but they're really long. Can you see that? They're like super long. And they sort of just hang upside down. And the flowers, they're definitely my favorite Hoya flowers, my favorite bloom. And I really can't wait to see it just bloom again. They lasted longer than the CV Jennifer, which is always nice to see. And it had a really good smell. It smelled like a regular flower. I kid you not, it smelled like a regular flower, but that's a good thing compared to what I expected it to smell like, which is going to be like the Hoya Crinkle 8. So I was pleasantly surprised when it came through. But you will also notice that there was an extra peduncle over here. It hasn't, I don't think it's fully developed just yet. Oh God, it's my phone is really struggling today, guys. Yeah, so it hasn't fully developed just yet, but it will, and I can't wait. And we've got some new leaves over here. I don't know if this is typical of the PHUWUAENSIS, but it has 3 leaves growing out of 1 point, so that's quite interesting. I really like to see that. It hasn't happened anywhere else, but you know, I'm not gonna complain. I'm actually super excited that this plant is starting to kick into overdrive, because it was really slow for a long time, and then all of a sudden, boom, it took off and it's doing really well. I've got this one trained to trellis almost up the shelf unit that it's on, and I think it really enjoys that, because it was until I put it on there that it started to produce the peduncles and the extra leaves and so on. So that's something that I'm going to continue to do. Just try to, as much as possible, train up all of my Hoyas, because I think that, again, encourages it to grow. Because when you do trellis your Hoyas and the points are facing downwards, it really slows down their growth, and they actually direct the energy to another growth point, like this one did over here. It directs it to another growth point, so that it continues to go up. So as much as possible, try to train your Hoyas to go upwards, because that's just what they do in nature, right? They try to reach for the sky. And yeah, that's it. This is the Hoya FINLAYSONII. This MEREDITHII was on my wish list for a long time before I got it. So I was really excited to get it. When I first got this plant, it had a huge leaf on it, almost like what I expected it to look like. And then the plant just wasn't doing great. It gave me this little leaf, and it was the only one I had for a long time. It did try to push out 2 other ones, but they both just killed over and died for whatever reason. But I think the reason was the fact that it was growing in leca, and no, it was growing in pond actually, and this plant just didn't enjoy it at all. In my last video, it was still growing in pond, and I decided to move it out into a really chunky soil mix that it's in now. And since then, not only has it given me this leaf, which is still hardening off, it's still very soft, very flimsy, but it's given me about 3 or 4 other growth points. Can you see that there's so many growth points on this plant? So potential is almost endless. Like, there's so many opportunities for this plant to keep producing new leaves. And I think this was the one that when it happened, I was like, you know what? Some Hoyas don't really like semi-hydro. They just like what they like, and you have to know what that is. And then I think it was after I converted this one and I saw it doing so well, that's when I put my LINEARIS into soil, and I also put my LATIFOLIA into soil as well, and they have both been doing really great. So yeah, don't be afraid to experiment and to move things about, because sometimes, yeah, your plant will bounce back. They're just looking for the perfect home. And I think I found it in this one. So I'm really happy, and I can't wait to get some of those huge dinner plate type leaves on this plant. So yeah, this is it, the Hoya MEREDITHII. Another Hoya that has been going into overdrive is this VILLOSA over here, guys. Oh, so many new leaves that have happened in just a short space of time. I think the last time I showed you guys, I think it may have only been one of these big leaves that had grown in, and there's so many other leaves that are coming out. So we've got 2 over here that are quickly growing, and we've got another 2 on the top over here that's also coming in. This plant has started to vine, which is interesting because I didn't think it was going to be a viner because it was growing so compact and so full, which I really did enjoy. And now that it's starting to vine up, that's an interesting thing. That's like the evolution of the plant. So I've trained this one up the side of my shelving unit, just as I've done with my PHUWUAENSIS. And hopefully it will take and it will start to do something a little bit different. So we'll see what's going to happen. As I said, when you start to train up your Hoyas and really get them in an environment that they really enjoy, that's when they start to grow really quickly. And already this one has started to sort of almost entangle and twine itself around that pole. And I imagine that once it grabs hold of that, it's going to hold on tight. So I thought to myself as well, if I didn't make this video today, these Hoyas are going to be really well established into that sort of shelving unit, and it'll be near impossible to pull it out. So I thought today is the day that I have to do it before before things get any worse from here. So this is the VILLOSA, and you can tell exactly why it's on my favorite list for the month of July. The Hoya OBOVATA has always been one of my favorite Hoya. It's just the shape of the leaves. I just really enjoy it. It's so round, it's so beautiful, and I just love the way when they come in, they have that dark purple hue on them. And I almost lost this plant. Like, this is the mother plant, this is the base cutting, and it came down with root mealybugs, and I was able to save it. I pulled it out, I really washed down the roots, and to the point where I almost killed the plant, to be fair. I washed it with like washing up liquid mixed in with some hydrogen peroxide and some water, and it was a whole mess. Anyway, don't do that. There's other ways. You're better off cutting off all of the roots and letting it start over. I think this is why this one's a little bit slower to grow than the others, because these were the top cuttings that I took, and look at them. It's been just a few months, maybe two months since I've done this, maybe a little bit longer. And there's just so much growth on these plants, and they're still growing. Like, there's some leaves like these ones over here that are still hardening off, and they're just new ones. And it's just, I don't know what else to say. Look at the roots. It's just going crazy, going absolutely. This is one of the Hoyas that I find really does like semi-hydro, especially leca. I've had it in pond before, and it didn't do as well. So of course I had to include it in this list because it's just I can imagine when I have this as a full plant, just almost like the Krinkle 8 is, just cascading down the side of the pot. It's gonna look crazy, and hopefully I can get this one to produce some peduncles and some flowers because I'm really interested to see what it looks like. So fingers crossed that happens this year and I don't have to wait too long. But yes, this is it, the Hoya obovata. The Wilbur Graves is one of my newer plants and an absolute stunner. Really in love with the variegation on that super silvery, just super shiny, and it's just, of all of my Hoyas, most of them are mostly green. This one just stands out. It's like a splash of color in the middle of a forest of green. And I can't deny that I really enjoy having this plant. I got this as part of a trade. I'm super happy to have it in my collection. And since then, I got it as a 1-leaf cut-in, and it was really well rooted, super well rooted. And since then, it's given me these 2 beautiful leaves. Oh, look at that. Oh, just stunning. And there's some more on the way as well. A really thirsty plant because it is really rooted. There's a lot of roots in here, but one that I don't have to think about too much. Even if it goes dry, bone dry, it will be fine. It just keeps on going, like a lot of Hoyas do. They're just troopers. Really interesting to grow. So hopefully, again, I can have a nice, thick, bushy one of these ones. And as it starts to grow, I will start to repot it back into the soil as well. So yeah, super excited to have the Wilbur Graves in my collection. The final Hoya in my collection, and one that I didn't think I would have, is the Hoya CLEMENSIORUM. I'm not sure if I've done that justice, but in any case, it is, hands down, I think one of my top 5 favorite Hoya. Just look at the leaf shape on this thing. When we're talking about veiny Hoyas, we have to talk about this plant. Oh my days. I got this plant at the same time and in the same trade as the Wilbur Graves, and oh god, it's been doing so well. I had this one in a grow bag just to ensure that the roots were really well rooted, because I had another Hoya, I forgot the Gunyang Ganning, whatever it's called. I forgot the name. I'll put it on the screen. But that one didn't make it because I just sort of thought I'll stick it in some pond and it will do its thing. But I don't think there was enough humidity, so it quickly just lost the leaf. And once the leaf is gone, the stem, forget about it. It won't root. But I just stuck this one in the grow bag when I saw that happening, and then it produced this lovely leaf over here, and then this one over here, which is still hardening off, still got a way to go. And there's another one over here as well. Don't know if you can see that, but yeah, there's a couple of leaves in there that's gonna come out. I've heard that this plant is quite a slow grower in my experience, and in the last 2 months I've had 2 leaves a month. That's not bad going, so I can't complain. Maybe now that it's in less humidity, since I've had to take it out of that grow bag, it might slow down, but you know, if I've got 2 extra, I'm a happy bunny. But yeah, this one's super exciting. There's not much to report because I haven't had it for a terribly long time. But as I start to get to know this plant, understand its growth habits, what it likes, what it doesn't like, I'll be sure to come back and give you guys a full breakdown on how to care for this plant. So of all the plants in your collection, which ones are doing the best? Is it your Hoya collection that's doing well, like mine? Is it your aeroids? Do let me know. Would love to have that conversation down in the comments. But that was it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep planting.